Tonight, after the world goes quiet, you'll lie down in a dark room, close your eyes, and expect to disappear for the next 8 hours. One long, uninterrupted block of nothing. You'll even feel like you failed if you wake up in the middle of it. But for almost the entire span of human existence, that is not how the night worked. Darkness wasn't a switch that turned you off, it was a place your ancestors lived in 12, 13, 14 hours of it every single night for hundreds of thousands of years, and they were not unconscious for most of it. Far from it. So, what did they actually do all night in the dark, hour after hour? The answer changes everything we think we know about sleep, about dreaming, and about how human beings became human in the first place. Let's start with fire, because fire is the reason any of this was possible. The earliest hard evidence of humans controlling flame comes from Wonderwork Cave in South Africa, around a million years ago. Burned bone and ash deep underground, far from any lightning strike. And fire did something no animal had ever experienced. It pushed back the dark. For the first time, the setting sun didn't end the day, it just changed it. The hours that had always belonged to predators and silence now belonged to us. And a brand new stretch of waking time opened up that had never existed before. Think about what that means. Our ancestors didn't gain a few minutes. They gained a second life every night lit by firelight. And what did they do with it? In 2014, anthropologist Polly Weissner published a remarkable study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. For years, she had recorded conversations among the Chuhani Bushmen of the Kalahari, one of the last people on Earth still living close to the old rhythm. And she noticed something extraordinary about the difference between day talk and night talk. During the day, in the harsh light, conversation was practical and sharp. Complaints, arguments over food, gossip used to police who was pulling their weight. Daytime talk was work. By daylight, barely 6% of conversation was storytelling at all. But after dark, around the fire, the entire texture of human speech changed. Weissner found that a staggering 81% of long firelight conversations were stories. 6% by day, 81% by firelight. Not logistics, stories. Tales of distant relatives, of hunts gone wrong, of people who had died, of spirits out in the dark beyond the light. The fire didn't just keep them warm, it became the original theater, the original classroom, the original church. This is where myth was born. This is where a child first learned who their ancestors were, where the rules came from, what it meant to belong to a people. The night lit by a single fire is where culture itself was transmitted from one mind to the next. It's where we became us. But the night wasn't only about the hours before sleep, because once your ancestors finally did lie down, something happened that almost no one alive today has ever experienced, and that science only rediscovered in the last few decades. You were not built to sleep the way you sleep right now, in one continuous block. In 2001, a historian at Virginia Tech named Roger Ekirch published research that quietly upended what we thought we knew about rest. Digging through diaries, court records, medical texts, and works of literature, he found more than 2,000 references to something he called first sleep and second sleep. For most of human history, people went to bed, slept for a few hours, and then woke naturally, calmly in the dead of night. And they stayed awake, sometimes for an hour or more. This wasn't insomnia. This was normal. They had a name for it. They called it the watch. And what did people do during the watch, in the middle of the night? Everything. They prayed. They tended the fire. They made love. They talked quietly to whoever lay beside them. And above all, they lay still and pondered their dreams because they had just woken straight out of one. This is where the word nightmare comes from, and it's stranger than you think. The mare has nothing to do with a horse. In Old English and Old Norse, a mara was a demon, a creature that crept into your room in the dark, sat heavily on your sleeping chest, and crushed the breath out of you. People weren't being poetic. In that long, quiet, wakeful watch, their dreams felt real enough to have names. Now, you might think this is just an old habit of a dimmer age, but then science confirmed what history had been saying all along. In 1992, a psychiatrist named Thomas Vare at the National Institute of Mental Health took a group of healthy men and did something simple. He took away their artificial light. He gave them 14 hours of darkness a night, the length of a real winter night, and waited. Within weeks, their sleep cracked cleanly in two. They would sleep, wake for 1 to 3 hours of calm, and sleep again, exactly as Ekirch's diaries described. And here's the part nobody talks about. During that waking hour, Ware measured a surge of prolactin, the same hormone that floods a mother nursing a child, a hormone of deep calm. The men described the state as something close to meditation. Your ancestors weren't lying awake at 2 a.m. anxious and broken. They were floating in a chemical peace we have almost entirely erased. So far, we've talked about fire and sleep, but on some nights, your ancestors didn't sleep at all on purpose. Among the San of southern Africa, the most important ritual in the entire culture is the healing dance, and it happens at night. The women sit around the fire and clap and sing. The men dance in a circle around them hour after hour until something the San call N/, a spiritual energy, boils up the spine and pushes the healers into a trance state called Kia. And in that state, they move through the firelight, laying hands on the sick, pulling sickness out of bodies, mending the quarrels of the day, traveling, they say, into the world of the spirits and the dead. This is not a quick ceremony. The dance goes all night. People grow exhausted and they do not stop because the dance must continue until the sun comes up, when at dawn it reaches its final, most powerful intensity and then suddenly ends. Whole nights given over to healing and music and the unseen. For your ancestors, the dark was not empty. It was the most sacred time there was. And here is the twist that should unsettle you. You might assume all of this vanished simply because we sleep less than they did, but we don't. In 2015, sleep scientist Jerome Siegel fitted people in three of the last hunter gatherer and pre industrial societies on Earth, the Hadza, the San, and the Tsimane, with monitors, and recorded over 1,000 nights of real sleep. The results stunned everyone. They slept an average of just 6.5 hours a night, the same as you, or less. They rarely nap. They have no real word for insomnia. They simply stay awake by their fires for hours after the sun goes down, and then they sleep. We didn't lose the night because we sleep less. We lost it because we filled the dark with light. The fire that once gathered everyone into one glowing circle became a bulb in every room, then a screen in every hand. The watch in the middle of the night, that meditative hour, got medicalized into a disorder and treated with pills. The stories moved out of the firelight and onto the glass. We kept the hours, we just emptied them out. So here's a question worth sitting with. The next time you jolt awake at 3 in the morning and lie there in the dark, certain that something is wrong with you, what if nothing is wrong at all? What if your body is doing exactly what it did for 300,000 years, opening its eyes in the middle of the night, reaching for a fire and a story and a face beside you, and finding only an empty, silent room? Picture it for a moment. The fires where every myth you've ever inherited was first spoken aloud. The quiet watch between two sleeps, when people lay still and turn their dreams over in their hands. The dancers moving in the dark until dawn, carrying the sick on their backs into the world of the spirits. For almost all of human history, the night was the richest room in the house. We flooded it with light and called it progress, and most of us have never once felt what we left behind in the dark.